were you kind of like hesitant to like go out in public? Were you, thinking about what people in the area thought?
I was very careful about that. Yeah, I didn't tell anybody about it. Only people in the Hudson Valley who even knew I lived there were my immediate neighbors. Uh, and so I was, as I say, I was really very careful about it. And um, um, I recall about 6 months after the book came out, I was asked to
Right.
give a talk at the local library up on 209. I don't remember exactly which library it was.
Right.
And I gave a talk there that seemed to be pretty well received, but I drove away very quickly because I didn't want to be
Right.
people follow me and find my house, because my neighbors were really up in arms about
The
the
whole thing.
idea that the area might be become overrun with tourists.
Right.
And then I also did a conference in Dutchess County about a year later where I spoke about my experiences. And again, it was very well received. Interestingly enough, some of the people who worked on my place had very strange experiences there, and so it got a local reputation for being really a weird place. So
Do you
there
think
was
that?
some hostility. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Some
sorry.
hostility, some hostility that developed around that,
Right.
and it was overall it was for the most part uh, okay experience. But oh, I see you're on a video. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't know if
Uh,
you wanted to chat through video or.
no, it's easier. I'm on my uh,
It's fine. I just wanted you to be able to see me, and
oh, sure. But in any case, uh, so that's,
Go behind the scenes.
I
What
guess
might they be
that's
holding back?
yeah. I mean,
where it's,
What's it
I talk to a lot of the
barely have
experiencers,
enough
and that's the
money
number
to
one thing.
actually
They're afraid to come forward. They're afraid of what people would think and what the public would think of them, their friends, their relatives, people that live in the area. So a lot of these people, they look up to you. I mean, just mentioning your name to them, and this is even before I knew that we were going to have this chat. I mean, they love your books, and I was just wondering, I mean, that is, I guess, something that everybody fears, like what happens when I step forward?
yeah. Well, I think it's a rather dangerous thing to do, to step forward, even to this day.
Yeah.
Uh, I think people can be, if somebody's vulnerable in some way, like if they have a vulnerability at work or some instability in their married life or something,
Right.
coming forward with something like this can be dangerous to your welfare.
Well, that's what you mentioned in your book. You were worried about your wife wanting like a divorce, and then when she was happy that you
Well,
came forward with it.
yeah, I was amazed that she was so happy. She said when I finally told her what happened,
Hmm.
her reaction was amazing. She said, "Oh, thank God! I thought you were going crazy,"
Yeah.
which is, of course, exactly the opposite of what I expected to hear.
Right.
So,
So the
uh,
next the
yeah.
next question that I would have for you is, why do you think the visitors, since my book is focused on the Hudson Valley and the experiencers there, and I get into a little bit of the wave in the 1980s. What do you think the visitors want with the Hudson Valley? Is there something that's drawing them there, whether it's a vortex or?
Well, that's a good question. There's obviously something unusual about the area, and I've thought a lot about that because I felt like uh, there had to be something unusual going on, and I looked into the geology of the area and also into its prehistory, and geologically, it was uh, it's where I am, my cabin was.
Right.
There was a uh, there's a huge seam of iron underground there that extends all the way up into Woodstock, near Woodstock, and that's where the Iron Mountain record storage facility is drilled
Right.
into that iron because it's such a great way of preserving something from anything that may happen above ground. Um, so that's unusual, and I thought that might have something to do with it, but what I don't know. Um, Now, south of my place, there's an area it's not marked on the maps. I don't think there's a road called Magnetic
Hmm.
Mine Road, where you know where it is, you can find it, and people would see balls of light coming out of the ground there, and they used to go there and visit. Groups of people used to go there and visit in the past. I don't know if they still do.
Right.
Um, but the geology on the other side of the Hudson is completely different.
Mm.
And yet the most extraordinary things happened, not in Ulster County, but in Dutchess County on the other side of the Hudson. So go figure. I mean, I just don't know.
Yeah. And then, like with the stone, like chambers, do you think that they had any interest in them?
Well, that's definitely possible. And there are stone chambers around uh, in fact, there are a lot of stone. Uh, there are a lot of stone uh, lines. They're uh, in uh, in even in the woods behind my house, behind my cabin. There were a lot of these
Really?
stone lines, and there was a couple of burial sites, graves, ancient graves, Indian graves, and the kids used to see a ghost Indian in the forest. I never saw this, but the children would see this.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so there was definitely something going on there.
Yeah.
Very definitely, and also a uh, uh, very ancient uh, carving of a turtle had been found there
Wow.
years before, and I never saw it, but I heard about it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Wow.
there was a lot going on.
It's just an incredible place. I mean, I'm a
Oh
sensitive, so
yeah,
I'm like I go there. I the place has all the feels, and whether I'm in Pine Bush or somewhere in Putnam, and I'm looking at the chambers, and it's just an amazing place. Um,
yeah, it sure is. It's an amazing place, and it's a good place. And, I was there. The Travel Channel did a documentary about me, and uh, I was there for the first time in 30 years
wow.
a few months ago, and the ambience of the whole area is just remarkable. I really is strong. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
and yeah, go ahead.
oh no, it's just very impressive.
Yeah, it is. It's an unusual area, and the people are too. There's a sense of peace there. I mean, everybody has arguments and fights, but
Mhm.
it's a different kind of vibe than you find in most places.
Yeah.
At least in where I lived, it was. So there's that.
Okay. The next question would be the visitors, and this is kind of what you mentioned with the iron. Do they have any interest in the Earth's resources?
Uh,
Because there's accounts of them like sucking up water from like lakes. They see ships going into lakes, stuff happening under the ground, and that's always been a
well,
question.
they were certainly under the ground near where we were, for
Right.
sure. Um, and uh, very definitely. And I found that quite remarkable.
Mm.
Because, well, I'll give you an example of what this was like. And, when you get close to this, as you probably know, there's this very kind of combination of occult and it's just weird.
Yeah.
So, one of my neighbors, we had a private road where we were, and one of my neighbors uh, was over at the cabin one morning, and we were talking about reshaling the road, which has to be done every few years. And we were talking about who we would give bids to, and ordinary stuff like that, nothing particularly exciting. And the night before, I had noticed you could hear, if you sat in certain places in the living room, you could hear what sounded like a high-pitched whine of some kind of high-speed drill coming up from below. And it was weird because it would, make your teeth hurt.
Mm.
It was a very strange sound. And so we were sitting there talking, and I wasn't sitting directly where I wasn't sitting in a place on the couch where the sound would make me uncomfortable.
Right.
I was sitting close enough to know that I could hear it. And he was apparently sitting right over it. He was in a chair, and I did not realize this. And all of a sudden, a stream of blood came out and started pulsating out of the center of his forehead.
Wow.
And Ann came rushing up and staunched with Kleenex and, got him settled down, and he went home.
Uh-huh.
Needless to say, never to return.
I don't blame him.
I don't either. But the next thing that happened was that we were leaving, and our son had a little friend with him, and the little boy was interested in butterflies, very interested. In fact, he's grown up to be a specialist in butterflies.
Wow.
He's a scientist now. And so he was eager to stop at one of the houses on the way out, because they had a picture window overlooking a draw, and there were, at that time of year, there were loads of butterflies in the draw, and so he wanted to go look out the window and see if he could identify the different butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
And he as we walked in, the woman in the lady of the house called to her husband, "There's a dead dog on the porch." And there was a big black lab, stone cold dead, lying on their porch.
Wow.
With no marks on its body of any kind. And then the little boy walks across the living room, and he's looking out the window, and she calls out again, "Oh, wonderful, I found the cat." Whereupon the boy whirls around with blood literally gushing out of both nostrils, and I see that he's wearing a cap that says "cat" on it.
Oh,
Now
wow.
you figure that out. Forget it. I mean, I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
But you see how weird it all is. And of course, Annie again runs up, starts the second blood flow of the morning, and we immediately telephone his family to tell them what happened.
Right.
And his mother says he's never had a nosebleed in his life.
Oh, God.
And so we get him home. He's fine. The next day is perfectly fine, never has another nosebleed as long as that. But we did notice one thing: he never came back to the cabin.
There's a pattern there. They don't come back.
Yeah, no, people aren't foolish. I mean, they're gonna definitely, uh, they are going to, uh, it, it, they won't be coming back to the cabin if that happens.
Right.
So, uh, so that was, those are the sorts of things that happened there that to other people.
Yeah, it seems like you had both. You had like the extraterrestrial and spirit activity on the property.
It's all linked.
It's
It's
that's
all
like your
linked.
book, like the New World, and you cover a lot of that in there.
Yeah, it's all linked up. There's the dead and the visitors and all of that are all linked. It's not ETs from another
Mm-hmm.
world coming down in spaceships to examine us with scientific instruments.
Yeah.
That might be part of it, but these ETs from another world are really, really different from us because they don't have a barrier between the living and the dead like we do.
Yeah.
And we do have souls; they are real. And uh, uh, if we can't, we'll never figure this out unless we figure it out in uh, in that context.
Right.
We'll never figure it out. To try to separate this and pretend like it's something that's comprehensible on in the way we currently understand and accept the world will not work. Because
Right.
it isn't.
It's one of my favorite books. That's why I'm happy you commented on that. It was mind altering just when I finished it and everything you covered in it. I'm a huge fan of your work, sir. So
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
if I could ask you your thoughts on the wave that transpired in the Hudson Valley in the 1980s, would you be able to comment on it and your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are this. It was absolutely remarkable. It was true. It happened. And I knew nothing whatsoever about it until years later.
Right.
Nothing. Uh, Not a thing.
It's,
And that amazes me, but it's true. I never read about it, heard about it until after the community experience when I began to do research.
mm-hmm.
And I was shocked that this was happening so close by. It was just amazing me.
Yeah.
Absolutely astonishing.
Do you think it was meant for you to like purchase that cabin? It was like predestined that you would buy that cabin in that area because that was like almost the igniter then for you to learn everything that has happened to you and
Uh,
kind of fueled your like your projection in the field.
you know, Annie and I talked about that a lot. And the answer is absolutely just don't know.
Mm. Like the synchronicities. I mean, it's just amazing. Like
Yeah,
that was like the igniter for like your whole life.
right. It almost had to have been, it had to have been intentional, but uh, I have to be honest with you. It seems impossible
Mm.
that it could have been because I mean, how could anybody have uh, known that? But I guess someone did.
Yeah. The
Someone did.
synchronicities.
Yeah,
And like
absolutely.
they all say, like we have a future, like that future pull is just always happening, and maybe something did it guided you to that area, and they knew that was going to happen.
Maybe, it didn't. I don't think the thing that's so strange about it is we almost had to be right on that, right on that spot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean
We had
you
to be
picked
just,
ground
just
zero for the activity.
yeah, but it's not that it's that it, you know, you understand it. It uh, we had to be just right on that geographic
Mm.
place in order to for this to happen the way it did.
Yeah.
So someone had to have guided us right to that spot.
That's simply
And you know,
amazing.
when we were looking for it, it was just ordinary life, and you know the price was right, and uh, we bought it. We
Yeah.
bought the cabin, and you know, and we had a wonderful time there too. It was a wonderful cabin.
Yeah.
I miss it terribly. I wish I hadn't ever gotten rid of it. I never should have built a second cabin. Um, I would have. Uh, I would have. Uh, I would have done. I wouldn't have lost it. I ran out of money because the second cabin cost too much, and I got so beaten up
Right.
in the media that people stopped buying my books, and I it was just extremely sad. And we lost the second cabin, and it broke my heart. It broke Ann's heart too, both of us.
Right.
So
I would ask you
um,
next. What do you think the visitors want with us?
communion.
Communion.
They want to share being. They want to join with us and us to join with them. It's not a small thing. They're not here looking for cell phones. Believe me, they're here looking for souls,
Right.
and they want us very much to be part of something larger. And it's going to be uh, it's going to be difficult for us to do this because it's a fundamental change of being, and it is, the ego is going to be in the way. There's going to be a sense of annihilation. All of that stuff I've lived. Believe me, I've gone through,
Right.
and it's hard. And they want as much of us as they can get. I think that they fear very much that the species is going to go extinct, and they value us. They want us to be part of a larger world, and they have their own reasons for that. It's not completely altruistic, but it is to a degree altruistic in the sense that I'm not so sure that the human species is going to survive long term
Yeah.
without something like this coming into focus for us.
Wow.
We need them and they need us.
Okay. Uh, what is your thoughts on the visitors communicating with us using a frequency? As an investigator of the paranormal, sometimes using spirit box, direct radio voice, I feel at times we might be communicating with someone other than spirits. Would you think that they
Yeah,
could
I do too.
talk through a radio or?
Well, I think that's possible. I think that electronic voice phenomenon, the
Mhm.
EVP thing, suggests that at least it used to be possible for a while, but people have sort of given up on EVP because it seems to have stopped working.
Right.
Um, in my world, called Jimmy Blanchette, Blanchette, and you can certainly find him on the internet. He'll be delighted to talk to you, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Jimmy is a ham radio operator, and I think this is his backstory. If it's not, it's close. He'll fill you in. He and his wife were out walking, and he saw a UFO, and he decided to try to communicate with it via radio. And he got a mental download to communicate on a frequency 144.1 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
And this was because it's an unused frequency. There's nothing going on an occasional military stuff goes on it, but it's not, if you're in a normal neighborhood or somewhere, you're going to just have silence on this frequency.
Right.
It's once used for Morse code, but nobody does that anymore. So, and that was a good frequency, and he started communicating on it, and he would turn on these little hand radios, and
Right.
he found that if he concentrated and asked them in thought to communicate with him, this would happen, and the radios would begin to beep on that frequency. There would be activity, and he went very deeply into this, and I met him. I probably interviewed him on my show or something. I heard about him, and so I got some of the radios.
That's
And to
cool.
all of our astonishment, there's one place in the world where that frequency is always active.
Really?
Inside this apartment.
That's like when you do your podcasting, you could hear that when you're talking. There's something going on with your equipment.
I know that's probably a side effect of this. We can't get rid of that. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I heard you say that, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing about the radios. First of all, you can sometimes put two of them side by side, and there are different. They're all both on 144.1, and you know how radio works. Radio radiates. It doesn't. In other words, if you've got two radios on the same frequency
Right.
side by side, they're going to hear the same thing, except not in this apartment. And sometimes when Jimmy was doing his stuff as well, you would hear something on one radio, it would be beeping in one way, and the other radio in a different way, side by side.
Right.
And not only that, if you take these radios out on my deck and just step out of the apartment, the signal is gone. It's gone.
Wow.
It's only inside the apartment. And I have experimented with turning every single electrical appliance off. I've turned off the main power to the apartment, all the computer, everything. The signal is still there. And yet you walk outside and it's gone.
It's like the activity is just around you. Probably wherever you go, it goes with you.
Nope.
No?
The signal does not follow me.
Wow.
Only in this apartment.
That's interesting.
And I wondered if I moved, if the signal would eventually show up in the new place. I bet it would, but I don't know because I have no intention of moving.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever in a hotel for a few days for an event, maybe see.
Oh, I've done that many times. I've been in friends' hotels, and
no
so
signal.
far the signal has never followed.
What do you think of intention and thought? There have been some investigators that I chatted with, and they'll bring a singing bowl with them. They will try to communicate via through intention and their minds with chips, and they feel that they get contact.
Well, that works for Jimmy Blanchette.
Okay.
Got contact. He established a relationship with them through using this frequency and everything. I know, and I know a man named John Martin who videos them every night up in the higher sky, and he is. I think some of his videos are probably satellites, but
Right.
a lot of them demonstrably are not satellites. You can see that from way they move. And I'm saying he knows enough about the satellite patterns to know, but we checked out the fact that there are classified satellites that aren't on the satellite apps. So, some of them have got to be probably satellites, but there's a lot of them, and you see him following airplanes and all kinds of stuff on the videos he makes. Yeah, I mean, you can just go to YouTube and go to John Martin, and you'll find his videos. And he plays the classical guitar. He's a very cool guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to reach out.
Guitar and makes his videos, and you hear him going, "Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, my dear friends." It's just
That's awesome.
A cool guy. Yeah, he's a very sweet man. And Melinda Leslie in Sedona takes people out every night to see UFOs, and she does know the satellites like the back of her hand. So when it's a UFO, she knows it for sure, and she never misses. She's in the years that she's been doing this, there've only been a few nights they haven't seen something, and they from time to time they've even seen structured craft. So this is with us.
Yeah.
My wife used to say it's a theater in the sky. It's
I like that.
To acclimatize us, to get us used to this.
I went to the Ancient Aliens when they came down here. They had a panel talk, and there was a man walking around with a shirt for Pine Bush. And I started a conversation with him, and he's in Tuxedo Park. So we started talking more and more about it, and he pulls out his cell phone, and he has pictures of the woods. And if you really zoom into certain areas, you see grays, and they're looking like around trees. And he says that he sees them a lot there.
I'm not surprised. I think a lot of them live here. They used to come up to the cabin. Interestingly enough, when they came up to the cabin, they smelled like the forest floor. If you dig down into the forest floor around there,
earth.
It's very earthy. It definitely has an odor to it, and yeah, very definitely. And but they would smell like that when they came up in the cabin and see people. But they would come up and they do things.
Yeah, you even said in the book you would hear the footsteps outside your cabin. You went outside with your shotgun, and there was nobody there.
Yeah, understandably. I mean, it would be you had the capacity to skedaddle out of there, and some jerks is coming out with a shotgun.
Yeah.
You'd go. I mean, they've been very patient with me. Very patient with me, but they do have tempers, and they have gotten pissed off at me plenty of times.
Really?
Oh God, yes. And it's not something you really want to have happen, believe me. There was a period of time they were really around a lot more than I've ever written about.
Right.
It was hard. And the lady, I guess it's the same one as on the cover of Communion, wanted more of our life, wanted to share more than we wanted to share. And I had some forced sexual contacts that were very difficult for me.
Right.
And difficult to tell my wife about, but I did. I've written about them here and there. It's more. There's detail about that in Supernatural when I'm with Jeff Reichel.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it very much, but you should definitely look into that. If you're writing a book.
Yeah. It's just amazing. I mean, the whole thing too, where you mentioned that they're under the ground too. There's people that think they come from the sky, so that's profound in itself.
They come from everywhere.
Yeah, and most, the public just think they're spacemen. They're coming from outer space, but they are everywhere.
They certainly come from underground too.
I mean,
They came
over in
from
China,
the
they
cabin.
just found a whole forest that's underground.
Right. Well, it's in a hole. I mean, it has a top. I mean,
Yeah, sinkhole.
it's open. It's a sinkhole.
Yeah.
But at the cabin, both things would happen. Like the lady I was just talking about, you'd hear her come. You'd hear her ship come right over the house, making a faint sort of clicking noise, and then you'd know it was down in the front yard, but you couldn't see it. And then within seconds, she'd be in the house. You'd hear her. The cats could see her, but we couldn't see her.
Wow.
And one time, our son had a friend there who he'd stuck his tongue in a light socket when he was a little boy, and he had a scar.
Uh-huh.
And she just went nuts. She did not like that boy in our life at all.
Oh, wow.
She was very protective. And so all night, I would have these sort of half dreams of her peering me in my face with smoke coming out of her side of her mouth. And then in the morning,
Wow.
I'd wake up, and the poor little boy has been awake most of the night. Andrew slept soundly. Don't use his name.
No, no.
He slept soundly in his bed. But the boy whose bed in the boys' room was right across from the door had this experience.
Oh,
He
my
would
God.
hear tapping on the door. And when he opened his eyes, these three long snake-like fingers would come in around
Whoa.
the edge of the door and tap on the door and scratch it up and down and then go back out again. And it woke him up time after time. And he said to me in the morning, "Mr. Strieber, will you please take me home now?" He never came back,
Uh-huh.
and the friendship ended.
Yeah.
And that was the way she was. I mean, she was very protective. And she probably still is, but she's not physically present in our lives anymore. And I miss her in many ways. And we sort of all fell in love in a way. It was a hard kind of thing, but it wasn't pretty love, but it was a special regard
Mm.
that involved wanting to respect her needs, and knowing they were very strong for her. And that was why Annie decided to just accept what she had done to me, because I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
She made love with me, and I could not stop it. I was helpless, not because I was so overcome with physical pleasure, believe me, but because I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And we just finally just accepted the fact that she was there.
That's incredible.
And she was there for years, 2 or 3 years. And and then things would happen though. The plumbers came to the house one time, and she was there alone apparently. We were in the city, and she got disturbed and started stomping on the floor upstairs, on the living room floor, while they were downstairs working on the plumbing, and they would run up and there'd be nobody there. And the plumber called me and said, "Mr. Strieber, we couldn't finish the job. There's someone in your house that you can't see." And we couldn't handle it. We had to leave.
Wow.
And so I said, "Look, we'll come up and we'll be there if you come back." And he said, "Well, I'm not sure we will come back." And I finally convinced them to come back. And they came back while we were there and finished the plumbing job. Another time we had guys who were there pulling poison ivy out of some trees. There was a lot of poison ivy, and we didn't want the kids to get mixed up in it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the foreman of the group comes up and says, "Mr. Strieber, we're leaving because one of your little aliens just ran across your driveway, and we don't want to be around here. The guys don't want to be here."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, okay, you want some money for what you did do?" And he said, "No, sir, we didn't finish. We don't want to get paid. We're just getting out of here.
As they hightailed out of your driveway.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. I could imagine those
And
notes that they had on
they
file
pulled
for your.
down at least they pulled down most of the poison ivy.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So, but we lived there quite comfortably with all of this. We had at first, when she violated me, it was terribly angry.
mm,
But Annie said, Whitley, this is the most extraordinary thing else that's ever happened to anybody. Don't live in your anger, live in your curiosity. And this was from the wife of the man who had had this happen. And so when I heard
amazing.
that, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to live in my curiosity, and we'll see what happens. And so that's what we did.
Truly amazing.
Oh, it was a wonderful experience, as it turned out. Once I got used to the idea that Anne thought that her sexual interest in me was, she said, it's understandable to me.
Mm.
I said, well, good. I said, but doesn't it make you jealous? Or she said, no, Whitley.
Wow.
I know her, what she's like too well. She has no chance. I said, that's true.
Uh,
And, um, so, so that was that.
wow. Well, will we ever know on a global level and government level that we are not alone? Do you think we'll finally know in time, especially how everything's coming into the media now and there's smartphones and YouTube and Twitter?
I have the feeling that we will know two things at the same time. One, that our world is irrevocably damaged environmentally and will not come back. And two, that they are here. I think those two things will happen simultaneously, virtually, within weeks or months of each other. And the reason is this: they know that we cannot bear their presence unless we have no choice. Then we will be able to. It's going to be very, very hard for us. And it's always hard when a baby is born, because that's why they all scream so much.
Yeah.
A peaceful birth is very rare, and ours will not be a peaceful birth. It's going to be really noisy. And the baby may be born alive and may be born dead. Think of them as midwives to the birth of mankind, because that's what they are.
Amazing. Very profound. Cover the stone chambers information. In closing, we're right at the end here. Is there anything our readers should know about the visitors that I haven't talked about?
I think that we need to do the following. I think, first of all, we need to keep it in question. It's too early to say what planets they're from, what they're like. Even if they are from planets, we don't actually know that. We don't know exactly how the connection between UFOs and the close encounter experiences works. We assume there is a connection, and I think there probably is. But
Right.
exactly how it works is another question entirely. We don't know the way in which the visitors are related to us, but there is some way. Those are all things we don't know. What we do know is that we have very good, very flexible minds. And in the end, hard though it is going to be, messy it will certainly be, we will be able to do this, or they wouldn't even be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Strieber.
Sure thing.
If you care to, if you send me a message back, if there's a PO box or something that once the books come out, if I could send you a few copies, I would.
Oh, sure. Let me text you that right now. I'll text you as soon as I hang up.
Yeah, sure. I would be more than happy to get some books out to you. And from a guy who's
Great.
just starting out writing about this stuff, this is my 6th book. Thank you, because I've read your book since I was in middle school. So thank you.
Thank you. As time passes, I'm beginning to fear the day when somebody says to me, Mr. Strieber, I've read your book since I was 6 years old. Oh my God.
Well-
I read that book when I was 42.
Well, your book's right there. The first book is right there on the shelf. Communion. And my son Jack, he came down, he pulled it. He's only 3, so he pulled it out. He looks at the alien. He goes, "Alien, Dada, alien." And he had no nightmares yet. So,
Maybe he won't have them.
yeah. I was, it's just he pulls out the books. He pulled out your book, and I'm like, oh, that's the one with the cover.
Yeah. There's a new edition out. It just came out. I just put it out.
I got it on Audible.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
And
I think.
You did a great job with the intro to it. That you did like the new forward.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it, and it's great that you were the reader. It even made it more powerful.
Well, that's the thing. I think I have to be the reader, and it's not easy. But I used to be amazed at how much trouble it is because at least when I read, every 5 words I make some kind of slip and I have to start over again. It's hard, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it, and I'll even mention that in the chapter that I'm writing. I'll mention your podcast.
Thank you.
I listen constantly. I'm a huge fan. So you doing this, I'm indebted, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
You have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.